All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a profound identity crisis from the ancient world, one that honestly forever changed Christian thought.
So let's get right to the heart of it. The big problem that early theologians were wrestling with was this. If Jesus was divine, God himself, then what exactly was his human body? Was it just a costume he put on for a while, kind of like a temporary vehicle for a divine passenger? Or was it something else entirely?
Now, this whole field of study has a name. It's called Christology, and it's all about trying to solve that one central, absolutely mind-bending question. And believe me, getting the answer wrong wasn't just some academic oopsie, it had massive consequences for the very idea of salvation itself.
So, before a clear answer really came into focus, a bunch of influential ideas tried to crack this paradox. But as we're about to see, every time they thought they had a solution, it just kind of created a brand new problem. It was like a maze of wrong turns.
There were a few major camps, right? There was Eusebius, who saw the body as just a passive tool. Then Apollinaris, who suggested the divine mind just kind of swapped in for the human one. And then the school of Antioch, which came really close to splitting Jesus into two separate people sharing a body. You see the pattern here? All these ideas were desperately trying to protect God from the scandal of suffering, this idea that God could actually feel pain. But in doing that, they all wound up compromising either his full divinity or his full humanity. Eusebius actually had this brilliant analogy to explain this separation, a lyre player. He said the divine part of Jesus, what theologians call the Word, wasn't really affected by things like the crucifixion. It was like a musician playing a lyre when a string snaps. Is the musician hurt? No way. They are completely separate from their instrument. Okay, so into this whole mess steps a guy who's going to reframe the entire debate, Cyril of Alexandria. He came along and argued for something totally different, something radical, a real, profound, and absolutely unbreakable union. This one idea, it changes everything. For Cyril, this wasn't God just partnering with a human or temporarily living inside a body like renting an apartment. No, this was a true transformation. God became man. And he just keeps hammering this point home. Cyril insisted that the humanity of Jesus wasn't some kind of add-on or a foreign coat he was wearing. It became the Word's very own flesh forever.
So, this big idea gets a fancy name, the hypostatic union. Now don't let the name scare you. Hypostasis is just an old Greek word that basically means person or individual reality. The idea is that Jesus is one single person who has two complete and distinct natures, divine and human. Think of it like melting two different colored pieces of wax together. They become one single unified block. But both colors, both types of wax, are still fully there.
And this right here is where Cyril's thinking gets really, really radical. He completely flips the old way of seeing things on its head.
You see the huge shift here, right? For someone like Eusebius, the human body was basically a veil, a curtain you had to look past to find the real God hiding behind it. But for Cyril, no. The human person of Jesus was the very place you were supposed to look. God wasn't hidden anymore. He was made visible in a human face. This is the heart of it all. Cyril argued that in the incarnation, the invisible God gained a visible human face. The glory wasn't behind the face, it was shining through it. And that's why he kept coming back to this quote from Jesus himself. For Cyril, this wasn't some nice metaphor. He argued that when you see Jesus, in faith, you are truly and literally seeing the Son of God, and through him, the Father. The human isn't a wall blocking the view, it's the window you look through. So you might be wondering, okay, this is some pretty heavy 5th century theology. Why does this still matter today? Well, it turns out the legacy of this debate is absolutely enormous. Let's break it down into 3 huge impacts. First up, salvation. See, for Cyril, if Jesus' humanity was just a tool, then our own humanity isn't really saved. But if God became fully human, then our whole nature, body and soul, is redeemed. Second, our relationship with God. By uniting human nature to the divine, Christ gives all of us a kind of kinship with God, a pathway to becoming his children. And third, and this one might surprise you, this completely changed art. If God has a truly human and visible face, well, then you can paint that face. This idea is the theological bedrock for the entire tradition of Christian icons. So look, if you take away just one thing from Cyril's big breakthrough, let it be the number one. everything, salvation, our kinship with God, even art. It all comes down to the idea of one single, undivided person, Jesus Christ, who is the Son of God and the Son of Mary, all at once.
This quote just summarizes his entire project so powerfully. He completely rejected that old idea that the body was just a prison for the soul. Instead, he argued that God came to save the whole person, to rescue our very bodies from death and decay.
And that leaves us with one final pretty provocative thought. Cyril's argument that the infinite, invisible God became visible in a finite human person, it didn't just change the Christian view of God, it completely changed its view of what it means to be human. It suggests that our physical, embodied lives aren't an obstacle to the divine, but the very place where the divine can actually be seen.